Okay, well, I just want to say thank you for agreeing to this interview this afternoon. If you could just state your initials, your place of birth and your date of birth.
I was born in Clarendon, Jamaica in 1953, the 11th of December, and my initial is PMR.
Right, is there anything that you can tell me about your early life in Jamaica?
Right, I was born within my grandmother's house, yeah. My father and my mother separated when I was born because for some reason that relationship was quite an unhappy one, and so they got separated and my dad went his way and my mum went hers, and we continued to live with my grandmother until when my mum came to England. No, my mother married when I was about 2.5 years old. Sorry, my mother married when I was about 2.5 years old. Then she moved to England. I believe my father moved to England just before my mum. And my mum came to join my stepfather. Yeah, so you had my father in England, you had my stepfather, and you had my mother. My mother came to England shortly after my stepfather and settled here while I remained with my grandmother in Jamaica.
You were the only child from your parents?
Well, yes, I am. And my mum's got 8 children, but I'm the first child who is just an outside of her marriage. Yeah, she's still married to the same person.
You were brought up by your grandmother. Tell me about your grandmother.
My grandmother was a very nice woman, somebody who was very caring, somebody who I believe loved me very much. I guess maybe that has something to do with me being her first grandchild. I think grandparents always have a thing about first grandchild, don't they? So I guess you could say that the best part of my life from 0 to 6.5 was quite good until when my grandmother died. Yeah.
Do you know how she died, what she died of?
My grandmother was told that she shouldn't use razor. In those days they used to make razor, but they didn't, not from stainless steel blades, which they do now. And she used it to cut her toenails, and of course it slipped and cut her toe. And she was admitted to hospital in Sparling in Clarendon for slow poison, which to the blood. And she died as a result of that. I was 6.5 years old when she died.
Do you remember much about that time when she died?
I do. I can still remember the day of the funeral, when we went to the ward in the hospital and they told us that I went with my grandfather, because my grandfather and I used to go every day to see her while she was there. She maybe was there for maybe about a week. It could be longer, but it did look a short space of time to me. Maybe as a child I did not acknowledge how long it was. But we remember going and they telling us she died. I remember my grandfather crying, and because he loved my grandmother really. You know what I mean? Because years after she died, he was still sleeping every afternoon he'd go and sleep on the tomb. Even when it rained, he'd go down and wipe the rain off the tomb. You know, so it tells me that he really loved my grandmother. You know, because I lived with him about 2 years after she died. But then he himself became too old and couldn't, I couldn't stay with him any longer. Yeah.
So you suffered a loss at an early age then?
Yeah.
Well, you loved them.
That's right. I did. I don't know about my mother's love. I really don't know. I can't say whether she did love me, and to this day I don't know. You know, but I know that I can say that I believe that my grandmother and my grandfather loved me because of the things that he used to say, and because of the things that she did for me while she was, as a, you know what I mean, I remember her having a very nice dress, and she didn't have time to get the material to make me a dress for something called Grand Market Day in Jamaica, where all the children on Christmas days give her money and go to buy their own toys on Christmas morning, instead of you waking up and told that Father Christmas is coming down the chimney. Yeah, so we ourselves, our parents would give us whoever your carers were, they'd give you the money to go and purchase your own toy, but they'd come to you and there'd be loads and loads of children, hundreds of children toddling off to Grand Market. Which was quite nice.
You enjoyed that time then?
Yeah, not, you know, I mean, I don't know about, but I would say from 0 to 6 and 6.5 was very good. I can't always recall 0 to 2 or something, but I'm sure if the latter before I was 6.5 was good, then I'm sure, you know, that very early day from when I was born was quite good, because obviously I was with my grandmother then.
Alright, so what standard of living were you with your grandmother? Were you poor? Were you well off? Were you rich?
We weren't poor, we weren't well off, but my grandmother were reasonable financially. Okay. My mother's father's side of family was quite wealthy. My own father's side of family was quite wealthy. But because my mother and my dad was caught up in a wrangle between themselves. When I say wrangle, I mean arguments about being spiteful to one another. And I believe more so my mom than my dad, because she uses me as an instrument to get back at my dad. And so really the only pawn in the game at that time was me, because I was the one who was affected by the pain and the hurt that all that was causing. So financially my father's family were able to care for me, but my mother, as she was the one who had in Afro-Caribbean household, the mother is classed as the main carer. And you know what I mean, they're the ones who decide whether the child live with the father or stay with the mother. So because of their confusion between themselves, I pay the penalty.
Right. Sorry, lost my track. Okay, we're gonna skip and come to when you came to England, because you know it's a period of time that you don't really want to talk about. Okay, but what year did you actually come to England?
I came to England in 1966 as a result of, there was nowhere else for me to go in Jamaica. You know what I mean, there was nobody else left to care for me. And I was really like being there was abuse going left, right and centre in my life, both physically and mentally. And so really, I guess one woman who remembered my mother wrote to my mother and says, you know what I mean, this is what's happening to your child. You know what I mean, there's nowhere else, nobody else will have her to live with them. What are you going to do about it? Because you see, in them times they think that people in England has loads of money. So when people know that your mother is in England, they don't really want to help you anymore, because they feel that your mother is living in luxury or in England, and so really she should maintain her child. And because I'd moved around the island so much, it meant that my grandfather from my mother's side, who was fight desperately to take me from different people that my mother had left, had passed me on to while she was in England. It's like, we'll write to a friend and tell a friend, oh, can you take my daughter and look after her for me? And you know, that friend would know somebody, and then they would write to say, well, this person can't keep your daughter anymore because you're not maintaining her. So and we have children of our own to look after. So then hence I would move to the other, somebody would feel sorry for me and take me. So then they were thinking, well, did my mom send some money? And she wouldn't send any money still, so it means that it became a vicious circle. Nobody really wanted to look after somebody's child who was already in England, because they weren't family, they were strangers. So And I came to England in 1966, and I'm not sure if I was better off in Jamaica or better off in England between the age of 13 and 18. Yeah. I think it was no better, it was just about the same.
Okay.
In fact, at one time I'd felt that maybe if I'd stayed in Jamaica it might have been better for me, because maybe I'd have been just dead and buried or something, and that would be it. Yeah.
You thought that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. The abuse and everything that was happening to me, I think I would have preferred to be in Jamaica. The first day I arrived here, my oldest sister, who was born here, then felt that I was a threat. You know, I mean, she felt that you know, she was always being classed, because when my mom came here she started the second family, didn't she? And she was classed as the first child in the family. Of course she was my stepfather's really first child, first baby that he's ever held in his hand. So it was like a second family, good, you know. And then suddenly here I come out of an appearance, look different to them and everything, and at the end of the day she was like, you know, it was terrible. She became extremely jealous and bad-minded, and any one of my sisters or brother that I got close to, you can guarantee you she never stopped till she breaks it up. You know what I mean? Because it was like, and because I was like, I can't be coping with this. Okay, fine, you're one mother, one father. It's just my mom. If you prefer that, although they're my sisters and brother, if you prefer they didn't talk to me, that's fine, you can have them. And that really, talking to you now, that really hurts, because I had rejection from my mother and my father when I was born. And then I came to England, and then have found, then of course when my grandmother died, the only person that I believed have ever really loved me, it meant that you know, I mean, here I am being passed around Jamaica, and then rejection, and then I came to England, and then there was this rejection again, yeah. And of course because of all the abused, and because there were other members that got abused, I still to this day am blamed for everybody else who was abused. Do you see what I'm saying?
Is that sorry, your brothers and sisters in England or elsewhere?
No, here in England, yeah. So it was never the perpetrator that was classed for the abusing, but the people who carried out the abuse to myself and others. I became the culprit. It was my fault. Do you see what I'm saying? Maybe this is too much for you to handle.
No, I'm fine. I'm just, you know, just letting you tell your story.
So, and so it goes on. And so the pain of it all, it meant that it was rejection all the time.
It might sound an obvious question, but what was going through your head at the time? How were you feeling?
Well, it had become such a norm to me now. Abuse was like a norm. Do you know what I mean? Abuse was just a norm to me. It was like...
That's how it is in life.
Well, it was just, you know, I'm not really... In fact, if you ask me to recall days and times, I guess I've just blanked them out, because it just happened, and that's it. I just carry on, and I guess one day, I don't know, I wake up and it never really happened.
What do you think kept you going?
What kept me going? I think when I held my first child in my arms at 14 years old, and I decided, well, whatever happens, I guess that's just me and her now, you know. And I think, although I was so at a tender age, the experience of me sort of going on was that I couldn't let whatever happened to me happen to this child. I just couldn't. In fact, it was like the only thing that I ever had that maybe would love me back eventually. Do you see what I'm saying? Because my grandmother had long gone.
Yeah.
And I've basically, even to get pregnant, that was an abused. Because I got pregnant because my mother left me one night and my stepfather brother visited the house. And when he visited, my mother had gone to Coventry, and he literally, I don't know, I was in my bed and that's it. You know, forced himself. But again, when it happened and when I left and went to a children's home called Braybrook Children's Home, I remember my mum and my stepfather came, and when, you know what I mean, the police, I did tell the police that it was, you know, he had intercourse with me, and obviously then my stepfather came and visited me at Braybrook Children's Home with my mum. And if you can imagine, just shortly arriving in this country, not knowing what it was all about, I think I was like frightened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At the time, I didn't know fright, but now, looking back,
Yeah.
I was frightened because going in a children's home and like being 7, I think there was about 10 of us in one big room. Your beds, you know, all the bed was like on a hospital.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you think, well, you know, where to now? And I was told that if I caused my stepfather's brother to go to prison, then, you know, what would happen to me? And obviously, here I am, went back home, and I guess it was a case of, I'm not even so sure how we became involved again with my stepfather's brother. But it went on that I got pregnant for him.
Like a second time?
No.
Sorry.
I wasn't pregnant the first time when he forced himself onto me.
Oh, right.
But somewhere along that line, I became pregnant. I think it was about third intercourse or something. And so I had this child. Yeah. So that's it.
Was it your decision to keep the child? Were there any questions about
Well, like I said, it's the only thing that I ever had that I ever loved. No. My mum wanted me to have this baby as a punishment because she told Dr. Fisher in his room when he said, well, I'd recommend that she has an abortion. My mum said no, she has to feel what it feels to have childbirth, and she will be, that's the punishment, and she won't, no, she'll have the baby.
So did she know that it was the step?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, my mum was well aware of what was going on. Yeah.
And she felt that having the child would punish you in some way?
Oh yeah. She said that. But then you've got to remember that I don't believe my mum loved me because looking back, I can remember when my grandmother used to say to me, maybe when I was about 4, could understand, she used to say that, your mother would lift you up and dropped you and, lift me up by my legs and drop me on my head. She came home one day and found me like, my mum just lifted me and just dropped me because I was being a nuisance to her. So, I don't blame my mum in no way. I still don't blame her. But I just don't understand how God has allowed. And I often ask, how come all of these things happen to me? Why? Why? And I still ask the question to this day. Why? Was it because I needed to be an example to somebody? Was it because I needed to be stronger? What was it all about? I still don't know the answer. Yeah.
So did you have a religious upbringing at all?
No.
No religion in your house?
Well, say yes and no. I don't think there's many children who were born in Jamaica who doesn't experience about God in one way or another. Before my grandparents died, I used to go to church with them.
Yeah. Was it a strong influence, or you don't seem to remember much about it, so maybe it was more in the background?
My church, going to church?
Yeah.
Maybe at 6.5 it's quite tender age, isn't it, really? And I think some of the homes that I used to move around to when I was young, you find that, I did go to, sometime I would be at church, sometime I wouldn't, depending on what family I was living with next. Yeah. And by all means, don't think that I'm like the only child who that life happens to. There's loads of children, even in Jamaica now, who are passed from street to street, from one set of people to the next. But it hurts, because as life goes on, you tend to try to pull things together. And you really have to be really strong for not have a mental breakdown or confusion, because especially when you've then grow up and find that you've had relationship with men, and like the thing about my stepfather never goes away, my stepfather's brother, it never goes away. It's always there, and you'll find that as soon as you form a relationship with somebody, there was always somebody there to go and tell the boy's mother something. You know how Afro-Caribbean people are in the community. Oh, well, that girl is no good, because they don't know the reason why you've been in situation like that, but they'll say, okay, fine, don't have anything to do with her, she's no good. And so you just go round in circles, and then here comes, in the time when you're supposed to maybe now take control of your life, when you're trying to form a relationship with male, you then come up to rejection again. So you can see, you look back in your life and you think parents rejects you, that's the first thing. Then here you are, you've come and you find yourself again with rejection with your own,
You said earlier that when you came to England, you would be look different to your brothers and sisters.
I look different. I could be in the same room with my sisters and brother, and you never knew unless I tell you that they are. We don't look nothing alike. Totally different.
Because I could see that you've got very fair colouring. Was it because they were dark? Or?
No, because one of my brother, they're not as fair as I am. But and it's not about complexion, it's about maybe, I'm not sure, maybe it's looks, maybe it's whatever, different father, I'm not sure what that's all about. I've never been able to understand it, but to me it doesn't matter whether my sisters are blacker than myself or lighter than myself, it wouldn't make any difference to me. But there's never been a relationship, and I think maybe it's hard for her, because what she's actually done is, the others are not too bad, but she's taken over the role of my mother. Do you understand what I'm saying?
In which way?
Not by caring for my sisters and my brother also, but what she's done, because she's my stepfather's oldest girl, I think she's looked at as the oldest and behave as, look, my mom can't, there used to be a difference. When my stepfather goes away on holiday, it would be a different thing. My mom would then be able to say, you can't separate yourself from Pat, because she has this old saying to say, if I died in Charlesborough, none of you would have come. And she would be saying to them, if they're getting married, they wouldn't invite me because of that older sister. Let's call her Jenny for that matter. Because of Jenny, they wouldn't invite me because it would upset her. Okay. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. Although they would want to invite me because they know that it would upset her, and because I'm okay to take a back seat, right? If it upsets her, then that's fine. Don't send me an invitation, because what's the use of coming to your gathering or doing a family thing and she's upset? It wouldn't make sense. So I'm quite happy to stay away. Yeah.
Okay, so you're basically being rejected by your own family, your own colour, basically. Well, did you have any rejections from the white people when you came here, from English people?
I think racism is always going to be in your workplace, wherever you are, yeah.
But as a child, did you experience that?
At school?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. At school it was like, I guess maybe the school that I went to, there was about, for the 6 months that I was here, right, there was like 14 black pupils in the school, and there was like about 400 white pupils, and then, you know what I mean, it was something new for them.
Yeah.
And I guess I could understand that, and you know, I mean, some of the things that they were brought up with, you know, the negative of maybe hearing some of their parents saying about black people, you know, I mean, are no good, or black people are just, you know, I guess all of that stemmed from that, really. You know, so being in school, you were like labelled if we spoke patois, and I still do to this day, and I'm not going to get rid of it, because that's the only thing I have that's personal to me. You find that even when the teachers couldn't understand you, they would say, you'd get reported to the headmaster that you swore at them, and you'd get the cane, you know, although you didn't swear, but because they didn't understand you, and you were stubborn and didn't want to repeat what you'd said to them, you got the cane. You know, no matter what happened, even if you tell the headmaster after, he's not going to have it, because they've already told you that you know, I mean, that you swear at them. Or in class, I'm not so sure if the little time that I spent there, if they really took note, you're just a number. You know, did they really care whether you learned or not? I'm not sure.
Are there any particular incidents that stick out in your mind?
At school? No, because I was too streetwise. I could take up for myself, I could defend myself. It was a case of had to. You know, I mean, over the years I've been really going to school at 14. I maybe was about 30 years old. I was too streetwise. I was too rough and tough, whatever. Do you know what I mean? So I could defend my own self. So I haven't got a particular thing that sticks out in my mind. In fact, I wasn't there long enough, because I got pregnant, as I said.
Okay, so what happened to your education after that?
Well, about 18 years old, I picked myself up and decided, well, you know something, you better go start getting yourself educated. If you've got to take them children, because all my children was like just from one relationship to the next. If I can, before I answer your question, right, if I can say that there's only really one of my pregnancy that I really remembered, and I can say that was when really I understand what motherhood was all about, because in a relationship I just got pregnant. Whatever relationship, it was just, you know, contraceptive was like, I'm not sure if it was like, with contraceptive, you maybe in your mind maybe know that you should be protecting yourself, but whether you did it or not is another thing. Do you see what I'm saying? So hence I ended up with about 4 children before I realised that what motherhood could be like, and that was for my last child. I actually enjoy the pregnancy for my last child, and I did with all the others. It just happened, and that's it. Everything else happened in my life. So the pregnancy just happened, and just get on with it, and that's it. Give birth, look after them, and then I decided that, you know, I gotta wake up and get up, because my life was like dedicated to these children. When I was 18, you couldn't get benefit. You had to work, whether you like it or not. So I started working when I was 15 years old. Yeah, I could only get like dead-end jobs, you know, like working in factories or something like that. Yeah. So I went to Bilston College, and I met a woman called Mrs. Carter Brown. Wishing she is long gone now. I should think retired. I'm not sure what happened to her. And I sort of chop and change from different things that I wanted to do. I tried hairdressing, I didn't like that. Then I tried doing English, studying English. I'm not even so sure. I just did enough to help myself. It's simple as that, you know what I mean? Because, you know, the O-levels English I never did, because when it was exam time I was like missing. I never went to the class. I just did enough to survive. And I educated myself while my children while I was, when I worked with my children, like in the early stage, they were at childminder and I would work and then I'd go to college in the evening or something like that. And, you know, eventually, because I had to pay my own rent, so I had to work. You had to, as I stated before, you had to be 21 years old, living in England to get a house or to get benefits. Yeah.
So how old were you when you had your last child?
About 25. Yeah, maybe it was the right age then.
Yeah. So how many did you have by the time you were 18?
Me, 3. Yeah.
That's quite a handful. Between the 14 to 18, you had 3 children.
I think we were all children. I was the child growing some children. Maybe I maybe tell myself they were given to me and I have to take care of them.
Yeah.
Maybe I had to protect them better than I was protected as a child.
Did you actually feel like a mother?
Oh yeah, I knew they were mine, all right. Oh yeah, people in my neighbourhood would tell you. I knew them children were mine. And I knew that my life had to be dedicated to them, no matter what happened. You know what I mean? Nobody was going to hurt them. Nobody was going to do anything to them. If anybody was going to hurt them, it's me. You know?
Okay, so take me through the process of when you got on your feet when you were 18 and you started studying.
I don't know about going on my feet. It was rough. It was really tough.
Yeah, you still did it though, didn't you?
It was, yeah, but I don't know if it was like getting on my feet. It was tough. It was tough going.
Yeah.
Because even I remember when I had all 5. Yeah, say if we can go. Sorry, you wanted to stay when I was 18.
You know,
yeah.
as you know, the process keeps going.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I remember like there was like when I was like 18 years old, and there were people that I was working with, and like I couldn't afford a day nursery because you had to be only married women, children that they take in day nursery. That's what I'm saying. These women now, these young women who are having children, they don't know how lucky they are.
Yeah.
They can get benefit, they can get house to live in. I had to live in a rented room with my children here when I left home. Rent a room within a house from other people, and my children weren't able to go outside, didn't mess about that. So I had to keep them in this room all the time because, you know, people don't want so many children running around the house. So it was like we were like living in one room on top of each other. Yeah. And I don't know, I've lost track now. Yeah, and I remember when my children were like at childminder, I'd get childminder because you used to have childminder who wasn't registered and they'd look after your children for you. But then you couldn't get one that really look after your children and how children should be looked after. So whenever time I get my lunchtime, I would then go. I'd walk it because there was no bus from where the factories where I was working. So I used to walk it to where my children were being childminded. And then from there, I would sort of make sure the nappy was changed, make sure they were fed, and walk it back to where I was, you know, Monday to Friday. And, you know, collect them in the evening, drop them off in the mornings. And it's like people would like, they knew I wouldn't have any lunch, and so what they would do is wait for me. Do you see what I'm saying? They'd sorry, not wait for me. They would leave a little piece of their sandwich wrapped up for me until I get back, and like they would say, "Here you are," because we know you've gone to look for those children and you haven't eaten. Yeah.
So were you in Wolverhampton at the time? Was it?
I've always lived in Wolverhampton. Yeah.
So how far did you have to walk?
Good grief, to where my children were. God, it was like running and walking. I was quite young then, so I guess I was like very active then, and I was quite slim then. I'm not as how I am now. Maybe about 20 minutes one way, or about 15 minutes. Yeah. So it'd take me about half an hour to go and come. So I'd spend it a half an hour making sure that they, you know, were fed and they were changed, and you know, because I saw my son he had nappy rash, and I knew it was because she wasn't changing his nappy as often as it should have done. So I thought, if I can just get there at lunchtime or change them and sort them out. Yeah.
So, what nationality was the woman who was looking after you?
Oh, they're all Jamaican. Yeah, unregistered Jamaican childminder. A lot of them in them days. Yeah. Charge about £1.50 a week for one child. Yeah. You're talking about 31 years ago, 32 for one, 31 and 30 for the other. Yeah, so it was quite cheap then. If I'd taken them to the where married parents were able to take their children to the government nursery, it would be about £20 a week, but I couldn't afford that anyway, because that would have been £60. I think maybe that's all I was earning, if that much.
So where were you working at the time?
Me, Wolverhampton Metal Plating Company.
Where's that?
Off the Birmingham New Road.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
So where did you go from there?
Where did I go? From having those are the three eldest children, I met another person who, again, as I said, after we got together, his mother decided I wasn't the right person for him, and hence the story start all over again. So got pregnant with that child, and I was left really. Eventually, the pace of things, he couldn't cope with his mum moaning all the time, and so we broke up. And he went, and I kept my child. So another one added. I was just collecting them.
How old were you when you had your fourth then?
Maybe about 21, somewhere around there.
Okay. Yeah. Were you still studying?
Yeah, I've always carried on with my studying. Yeah.
So what was your plan as you were studying? What were you planning to do? Where did you?
I just needed to learn to read and write. So one day I had no plan. I just needed to read and write. I needed to help my children. I couldn't help them if I couldn't read to write. If I wasn't able to read and write, how was I going to know whether what they had from school was right or wrong? And in fact, I was quite hard on them, because when they bring home their work and it was like second, I used to think, you can't be second, you need to be first. You can't be nothing less than first. It don't make sense. There has to be another level you have to achieve. But maybe that was because I myself was a non-achiever at a tender age. Then I think that my children must achieve. In fact, I wouldn't change it. My son, the one that was just here with me, what you met, I think he still have a go at me, because he feels that because he was like the one that frustrates me. He was like provoking. Like he was the one that he was a 5 children roll into one. Does that make sense to you?
Sort of.
Yeah, he was like, he made up for all the naughty things that the other one never did. He made up for all of it.
Right, yeah.
And like, for instance, he'd be washing the plate and he would be calling the others to experiment. I might be not here, I might be somewhere else, right? Or maybe upstairs or they downstairs. And he's washing the plate and he would want to, there must be another way to get the water out the sink. Do you know what I mean? Mischievous. And so he'd get the Hoover out the sink, out the cupboard, and he would use the Hoover to get, and you know what happened then? The Hoover would blow up. Yeah, that. And I remember one day he must have been, his hand was wet or something, and he touched the light, and obviously he got a shock from touching the light switch into. So he had to wet everybody, or the other hand, so that they could have a feel of the tingle that he had. Yeah. And so obviously he had more smack than the rest. And so he still talk about me smacking him to this day.
Yeah. Does he appreciate how you were with him though now?
I don't know. You'd have to ask all of them now. I don't know. I don't know. They know that I've worked. In fact, there's this card that my daughter gave me, and it says to the successful woman. And you want me to read it?
Yeah.
Okay, it says, the successful woman knows herself well and uses her talent wisely. With warmth in her smile and comfort in her touch, she let others know how special they are. She thinks children are priceless, all nature is precious, and asks what can she do to make the world a safer and better place. Just by being a wonderful person you are, you make such a difference in the world around you. No wonder you are admired so much and wish life more special joy on Mother's Day and always. To Mom, I chose this card because it reminds me of you. You're so beautiful. From my youngest daughter, Maureen. Yeah, so that maybe tells you about how they maybe think of me.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
reading that card, how does that make you feel knowing that your daughter thinks that of you?
thinks good of me.
How does it make you feel knowing that your daughter picked that card especially for you?
The card is fine. You know what I mean? I guess it's quite nice that she thinks that way about me. But I hope that she herself will go on to excel. And that's all I ever ask for my children. I always say to them, I can't choose their friends. I can't choose what they do. But they need to choose their friend wisely. They need to walk within a safe environment for themselves and reach for the star. That's basically all I've ever asked them to do. Yeah. Reach for the stars, make sure that, and the star means that good quality time, good moral standard, in life really, and they must always hold on to that. Making sure that whatever they choose is not morally wrong, but it also must be something that they're happy doing for themselves. Yeah. Okay,
so looking back on your career path, what steps were you taking to get where you are now?
As I said, because I'm now a social worker. They say social workers are survivors, aren't they? Yeah, they usually survivors from some pain or something. Yeah. I guess maybe that's true. I can speak for myself. I guess for me that could be right. There's several jobs that I did before I actually got qualified as a social worker. I went into computer stock controlling, and I did that for about 10 years. Then I was made redundant. Then I did quality controlling, testing the materials that goes into product, making sure that it's the right material, which is, quite hardly, you had to be qualified for that. I was trained by the company for that. Don't ask me. As I said, although my life started so bad, how the things that I've done, I do, I still believe that God, sometimes he must put me somewhere where he tests me, and he said, okay, fine, well, here you are, there's another thing for you to do. And it maybe I'm not explaining that properly.
No, I understand.
It's like each hurdle, if you can imagine, you've seen the Grand National and the horses, and the hurdle get higher and it gets higher, but they're all tests for you to jump over. But sometimes God is always just in time. Do you know what I mean? When I feel that this is it now, God is always just in time. And because of that, I think my faith has helped me to carry on. You know what I mean? Because even there were, times when my children, they're too much. And in fact, and I remember, and I'm not ashamed to say this, but I remember when I had my fourth child, and I woke up one morning and the Sunday night I was going to bed, and I did not have neither milk, cornflakes, nothing to give to my children. And I put them to bed, and I asked somebody to watch them, and I went up to Wolverhampton Town Centre, and I stood by Marks and Spencer. Don't ask me, I've never done prostitution, But I stood by Marks and Spencer and I thought, well, you know what I mean, I've used the last bus fare to come up here and I have nothing to give my children in the morning. And I remembered this man, he walked up to me and he said, "You're not a prostitute. You don't even look like a prostitute. What are you doing here?" And he said, "Well, why don't you just go home?" And I went back on the bus because in my own mind, that would have been my first night. And all through my troubles, right, the abuse and everything that I've gone through, that was the closest that I ever become to doing prostitution. And I went back home, and as I got on the bus, there was somebody that gave me £5, a woman. She said, "I don't know, but I'm giving you this £5, right?" And she must have won some money at the bingo or something, and she gave me the £5. And I went home and I went to bed and I woke on. Can you imagine £5 in them days, 27 years ago? It's a lot of money. And I went home and got up early before my children next morning. I went and bought the stuff for the breakfast, and I went to work and they went to school. So I'd say that to tell you that no matter how low my life got, and then all through the abuse and everything, God came just in time still. Do you see what I'm saying? He really did, and he still has, and he's still doing it for me in my life. When I became a social worker, it was a case of, because I didn't get a grant for social working or nothing. I did not get a grant. My courses that I've done, I've never had a grant from anyone. I've always had to pay. And it's a case of, I had I educated my first child to look after the second one to look after the third one to look after the fourth one, and all four look after the youngest.
Right. So you had a system going.
Yeah, I did, right. And it's like, I remember when I was working for Eveready, what I would do, I used to go to work. I think if social services knew about me, they would lock me up, because I went to work at 6 o'clock in the morning, but I'd get up at 4 o'clock and I'd cook my children's dinner before I go. My oldest boy, or the other, because they all know the routine, and so I'd share out the breakfast before I go, right? All they had to do was make sure that the milk was warm and pour it over, right? Rewarm the eggs and things that I'd leave for them. I'd leave the clothes out, and they would then, this was when I was working shifts. There were times when I worked 9 to 5 and I'll take them myself. But as I gradually got older and I looked for a better paid job, it was a case of them helping me to help them. And like Leroy they would take the youngest, they would have the breakfast, take the youngest to school, to nursery for me. And I remember the one day, I remember the nursery manager said to me she had to go out in the road, go outside today to admire my children, because apparently my son, he realized that he was going to be late for school, and so the traffic wouldn't stop for him to cross over for the prom, and he went out and put his hand up like a lollipop man, right? And he stand in the road with his hand and get all the other children, get his sisters and brother with the baby to walk behind him and then go in the nursery, and then he would sort of tell them thanks and go on. And what I'm saying to you, it's a case of, I had to educate my children to help themselves, because there was no other way. Because I guess maybe when I got to 21, maybe I could then go and benefit, but I just tell myself, I don't want benefit. I need to show my children that although I'm a one-parent family, I had to be the example for them, and all the way it's a case of, you can't live without you actually working. And do you know what I mean? If you want things and you want to be comfortable and you want to get on in this life, you have to work and earn and not have your own. It's all about, I had a thing about people not asking me question about who I was, or you know what I mean, asking me any personal question, because I just couldn't, to go and tell them about, my children was, you know what I mean, there was 2 that was one dad and 2 that was another dad. I just couldn't cope with it. So it was a case of just get on with my life. And then when they were at school, I could remember that I sort of, that's all fine for them. Yeah, I remember that I then decided to do my social work training. And so what then I had to do was work nights. Yeah, go to university in the day. Because as I said, I didn't get a grant and I had these children to maintain.
Yeah. How old were they at the time? What ages were they?
Well, I'm not much older than them, am I? When you think about it. Yeah, so I've been trained now about 10 years as a social worker. About 15 years. And the oldest is 32. Yeah. The youngest is 23. Yeah. But also you got to remember now the pressure had to be taken off them because each one of them were getting older and they had to then study for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So although I was studying, I realised that there's one of them might be doing their mock exam or might be doing this.
Yeah.
And so I have to then still try and manage my best and not actually put the pressure on them. But then, my son, back to that same son again.
Is this Leroy?
Yeah. He decided that I had to go to college with him. Right, yeah. Because
With him?
because well he was like the person that I've sent him to college, and I found out that because all of them they had it, I guess they had it hard, they had it tough, because while they were in school I always had them on report. All of them, they all went to different school.
Yeah.
Not one of them went to the same school.
Was that planned?
Yes, it was. It was planned because I always thought that if one of them gave trouble in school, then all of them would be labelled. So if I separated all of them from going to the same school, it means that if Leroy did something, then the other one wouldn't have to be labelled by what he did. You know how the syndrome. That's a syndrome, isn't it? The label.
Yeah.
And
how did you manage to get them to separate schools? I thought that they all had to go in the one.
No, in my time that you could go. You didn't have to stay in the same borough. You could go to different school.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had 5 welfare officers. I had 5 different schools. Do you see what I'm saying?
Okay.
So it was like 5. I had to go to 5 different Hope and Evelyn's. So sometime you might find that the Hope and Evelyn on same Evelyn. So it's a case that I had to be in 2 schools at the same time and whatever. But I did it. Yeah. And like on sports day, it was like they were competing against each other because they were like different schools.
So you couldn't root
Aldersley, that was so funny. No, maybe I was like, what's his name now? What them 2 tennis sisters called?
Oh, Venus and Serena.
Williams. Yeah, I guess I guess it was like that. Who do I
Yeah.
Because you could find 3-4 of them in the same race because of the different school at Aldersley that I went to. That was real fun. That was, yeah. But obviously Leroy was the athletical to the lot of them.
Yeah, you were talking about going to the college with Leroy.
Because he just would not. When I sat him down and I said, look, I have come this far with you, and basically you have got to make sure that you don't waste your time at college. You got to make sure that you not shooting pools in the day instead of being in class. And then I'd get the report because, as I said, I always get somebody to tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
If it's not the teacher, at college, the teacher's not going to give you a report, is there? So it's got to be somebody who, and there's always somebody who knows me, that knows my children, that will say, well, Pat, I've seen whatever. And he just wouldn't listen, so I thought, okay, fine. So we both went to university together. The course that he was doing is not, I didn't need that course. But because he, at that time, because his career that he's chosen, he felt that was the only thing that he wanted. He plays football. He used to play professional football. semi-professional, and so he decided that he didn't want, education was like secondary to him. So he then chose to do catering.
Okay.
And I sat in his class with him. In fact, I changed my day work and go to night work, just for Leroy.
Keep an eye on him?
No, to make sure he stayed in it. He's got to have had a qualification, whatever qualification. I didn't choose his qualification for. He chose it, and the best thing for me to do, if he's going to mess about at uni or at college, I'll go and sit in class with him. We'll both do the course together. He hated it.
Yeah.
He really, really hated it, especially when like girls in the class fancied him, and of course his mother is sitting in the same class as him. But we both went.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you talk to him, if he walks in here now and you talk to him about it, he'll tell you, oh, she's mad. She really is mad. She really is.
Yeah.
You don't listen to her, she's just too mad.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm thinking about it. Probably not a lot of parents would have done that. But you were thinking of his future.
Yeah, because I had come too far to actually watch Leroy go and mess about and do things with himself that's for the future is going to be jeopardising him.
Right, so were you more concerned just with the fact that they should educate themselves to have a better standard of life, or were there any racial issues involved here, them being black, so they had to have a good education?
It was both. You always have to remember that. In fact, my children will tell you that I will always talk to them about living in today's society in England, right? Because the racism is institutionalized. Oh God, I can never say that word.
Institutionalized.
Yes, it is, and so because of that, it means that it's a case of, or if I can put it the easier way, I had to remind my son that in this society, the white people will sit on your back, right? And they're hurting you, and they're actually, although they're pressing you down, they're telling you, no, I'm not really hurting you, you're okay. So I'm always telling my children that. And I guess maybe in this interview, for whoever might listen to it, another thing that I've always said to my children, take it what you like, whether you think it's racism or not, or you think it because I had enough problem already and couldn't cope with any. I usually say to my son, or my daughters for that matter, that I can't choose who they're married to, right? But because of the working especially with mixed race children and see how they've been abused, and really you think that black children get a raw deal, mixed race children even sometimes they get even a more raw deal. And I'll say that I'm getting old, and I've worried for myself and I've worried for you guys, right? And to actually go and worry even worse for my grandchildren, I said try your best to try and make sure that, you know what I mean, if you're going to choose, if you choose love and married to somebody from the white race, remember that your children might be the one that suffers the consequence of you falling in love, because there's several fold there. The culture of what you're coming from, especially for my sons, will break down. It means that the two culture, one is going to be from a son point of view, it means that if he has a white wife who is not culturally aware, then it means that you've lost that, and the beauty of his culture is just lost. What would he hand on to his children? Nothing, not much. And you know, I mean, I don't have any regrets about who wants to marry white or who wants to be with white. That's fine. I don't have any problem. But I'm saying to my children, remember, right, the racism, the pain that mixed race children goes through. You know, and you know, people have got a thing about because you're light skinned, you know what I mean, you don't, oh, it's okay for you. Damn well ain't. It really is not. You still, sometimes it's harder for you because, you know, sometimes the white society rejects you and the black sometimes rejects you. It's harder to fit in. So
so would you say that culture is very important to you? Because I notice all along
yes,
the wall,
it is.
You've got all these
yes, it is.
artifacts.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. When I come home, I live in England,
Yeah.
but when I get home, I guess to my own environment, I still have I still need to find something to say. Well, yeah, this is where I live, and this is me. Yeah.
Did you suffer a lot of racism in your employment?
All the time. I'm still suffering it now.
Even now.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because I speak patois. You have the administration staff, and sometimes because I speak like in the past tense, sometimes I miss my eds or my s's, and you'll find that they give me a hard time for that all the time. All the time they're complaining and whispering and whatever.
What do they say?
You know, look, she's left the eds again or something like that. And so although they undermined your work, yeah. Sometimes it hurts, it really hurts, because you know how far you've come from. I know how far I've come from to actually achieve what I have achieved, and then to still finding that, you know, how people are, because she's not, you know what I mean, I've seen worse from white people within my team now. There's one person there, you can't even read what he writes. And all the time they have to get people to translate what he's writing. And they're not whispering and talking about him. They take it in their stride.
Because he's white.
Yeah, well, what else could it be? It's okay for him, but it's not. And you know what I mean? Mine is quite well, to me it's quite readable, because I guess late in life, the way I was learned to write, it would be quite plain, you know, very, very plain to see. And this man called Brian, he can write all sorts of rubbish, and they'll go and say, can you translate this, and they'll have to use the pen and write it over. But just because I've missed the eds or the s, they're still, you know, really making me feel that small about it. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just looking at some photos here. This one, this HM prison service.
Yeah, my daughter, my youngest, have decided after her graduation she's gone into the prison force.
Is that her?
Yeah, she's...
Oh, sorry, I thought it was all men at first.
No, well, there's only 2 women in that. There was 150 of them graduated, and there was 3 women out of the lot, and she was one of the women, and she thinks it's great.
So where is she serving now?
She's in, yeah. No, she's in Otten. I'll just tell you where she's. Huntercombe. That's in Oxfordshire. Yeah. So that's where she's based. My oldest daughter, who is at the front, because she's the tiniest, she's only about 4'8" or something, or maybe a little bit more.
Alright, so they're not in age order.
No, they're not. That's right, yeah. So the first one is at the front of the picture, and she's a barrister. She works in New Jersey. She lives in New Jersey now for the last 7 years. She works on the stock market in America as one of the company barrister there or whatever. She's got 1 child. Yeah, doing quite well.
Is that your only grandchild?
No, I've got 2.
You've got 2.
Yeah.
Who's got the other one?
Leroy. So the 2 oldest have, yeah. She was 20, about 27, 26 when she had her first child. And Leroy didn't compete when he was 26 by saying he's just the same age as Lorna. So wishing was well overdue comparing to when I had my first child. Really, my children are a credit to me, really.
Yeah.
Because you have my other girl, who's Leroy, as I said, he's did semi-professional football, played for several clubs. He's got an England cap actually, because he played for the under-21 for Britain, and I've got an England cap for him. Well, I guess he gave it to me. He when he went to Portugal to play Portugal against England, he decided that instead, you know, they're supposed to exchange the shirt. So he then told them that he didn't want to exchange his shirt. Could he take it home for his mum? So he took his shirt home for me, and I've still got it, which was sweet.
Nice.
He works for cable TV at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's not doing too bad.
Alright, so running out of
And
time.
Lavina is an occupational therapist.
Yeah.
She's got a master's.
Mm.
And Truman, he works for the Savoy as a floor manager.
Mm-hmm.
A Savoy in London.
Right.
Yeah.
So would it be right to say that you're proud of your children?
My children are a credit to me, yeah. Yeah. But it was hard work and determination.
Mm-hmm.
And you find that I've got an adopted daughter and I've got an adopted son.
Oh,
I've got an adopted son. He's on the table there somewhere. He's in Sudan.
This one?
Yeah, I've adopted him. He lives in Sudan.
All right. How old is he now then?
He's about 13.
Okay.
Yeah, so I pay for him to be
Yeah.
in school and that. And round there's a girl. Well, I've got several other women that, as you can see on that table, she graduated now as a social worker. Somebody who she's doing nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a nice photo.
Then you have Leroy's married now, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I can just go back to Leroy, he's married. And I've been on several committee and, lots of projects. There's one of my highlights there. I've met Prince Charles through one of my projects.
Where's
It's just over there, behind.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
I can see the picture.
Yeah, I did a project that he...
Yeah.
And I sit on quite a lot of committees in Wolverhampton over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And of course, I run women conferences of self-esteem building.
Mm.
Usually around about Women's Week
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
So you do quite a lot now then.
Yeah. Well.
Where you're coming from.
Yeah, because I believe that women. I believe that no matter where you're coming from, what background it is, you can make it if you really believe in yourself.
Mm.
It's a case of hoping that you meet somebody along the way who can help to give you that push. I can't say I had that, but at the same time, I usually befriend maybe one or two older women who I could go and talk to, like they weren't, like a mother figure type of thing. I've never told her. In fact, you're the closest that here. This is the first time that I've really told anybody so in depth about my life, although you don't know the real story, you only know a part of it, because there's a whole of pain that I wouldn't tell you tonight. And I've never told anybody. That's still there in dormant. I guess I'll die with them. I've told my children because they needed to know.
Yeah.
They needed to know the beginning and the ending of the mother, and so they all know some of it. I think my daughter, my third child, finds it very painful. And sometimes, you ask yourself, was it right to tell her or to tell them?
Yeah.
But I guess that was the decision. Once I've told them, I can't take it back, And so in time, I think some of them are still going through some of the pain. But in time, I hope that time will heal itself. But I say this to say that I could not have achieved all that I have achieved without God. God who has been the beginning of my life and will be the ending of my life. It's all through Him that make whatever I've achieved possible. Yeah. I don't have a partner. I'm still a single parent.
Yeah.
I chose to remain a single parent because I didn't want the abuse to come to my children. Whether it came or not, I don't know about it.
You didn't want to take the chance.
No. What I'm saying, I don't know if my children have had any abuse through their life that I don't know about. No. Abuse in their life, and I may not know about it, but to this day, I think that I've done my best.
Yeah.
Do you say?
Yeah.
And I guess I will carry on doing what I can until the day when I die, because what I can do now is pray for them that God will keep them safe, that God will protect them in spite of all what happened. And out of some bad things come good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
to end now, as we go wrap up, I can see that you have a beautiful home. It's really nice. You're living in a really nice area, and you've achieved a lot. Are you actually satisfied with that? Do you have any future goals? Do you have any plans for the future?
Right. Future goal. I hope that one day that I will go back to Jamaica. That was where I was born.
Yeah.
And that was where I would one day hope that I would end my life. And I guess secretly, I don't know if it's a thing about women, but secretly within myself, I would hope that I would get married one day. You know what I mean? I still have that dream, because I still believe that if I would like to know what it's like and what it feels like to be in a relationship where there is you know, you find that thing that they call love within a relationship, if it's even the last year or the last day of my life. So that I have. Nothing materialized that I have achieved in life. My home is beautiful, but it doesn't mean a thing. It doesn't mean anything. If I walk in here tomorrow and it wasn't here any longer, say for instance, fire burn and it's gone, I wouldn't be sad, because it's not my life and it's not my children's life. Do you understand? In other words, I don't know if you know the story of Job. Job had so much, and no matter what he had, it was, my life must be, it must be an example. And the materialized things that I have achieved is not really important. It's how I myself, who can I help today? What can I do to help this person who really has been broken, sad? What can I do to help that? That's more an achievement for me in my lifetime. And I guess I will, you know what I mean, I guess my goal in life, that, and I don't want to thank you. If I help you today, remember that the next person that you meet along the way, help that person. Don't thank me, just help the next person. Because, you know what I mean, that's basically all I ever ask. You know, there's lots of women in town, in Wolverhampton, young women, that I've paid for their exams at university, and I've whatever, you know what I mean. I'm just telling you because you're interviewing, because they know that once I've paid, some of them will come up to me and say, you know, do you remember when you've done all this for me? When you've paid this for me and you've paid that for me? And honestly, I really don't remember about it. In fact, sometimes I'm not even so sure that they're telling the truth. Help the next person along. Don't remember that I've helped you, just help the next person. And that's basically, that would be my future.
Well, that's great. That's fantastic. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
For this interview.
Sorry that
really interesting and fascinating as well.
I'm sorry that it might have been painful for you.
No, I'm fine. Really, honestly, I'm glad that you could share it with us, and I'm sorry that we just haven't got any more time to talk about it. But thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay.